Ben is at the Capitol, where we are coming to the end of the second week of the teacher walkout. Ben, what's the latest out there today, and how many teachers are you seeing out there today after the union has said the walkout has come to an end?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen consistently large crowds every day of the walkout up until yesterday, and then the Oklahoma Education Association, which had been one of the leaders in this, yesterday late in the day, announced that it was calling in into the walkout. It said that it had to be realistic. It celebrated some of the gains that they said they had made, including a teacher pay raise and a boost in funding that happened before the walkout. The walkout definitely had an impact on the legislature approving that. But over the last 2 weeks, there were a couple more revenue bills late last Friday, but this last week there was really no movement in the Capitol, and lawmakers continued to say that they just didn't see it in the cards for this year. So the OEA said that it was calling for an end to the walkout, putting its focus forward, especially on the November elections. Today, much smaller crowd, but there are a couple thousand teachers here. They're meeting outside. There are some inside, even though there aren't lawmakers in the building for the most part, as they're in their 3-day weekend. There are teachers that are leaving notes on lawmaker doors. There's been a couple impromptu rallies, teachers saying, encouraging each other to kind of plan their next steps. And if you walk through the building, at least half an hour ago, there are actually clumps of teachers from different buildings that are sitting down around and saying, okay, what do we need to do next in terms of, focusing on the election, advocating at the Capitol, even if we're going to be back in school. But most schools are back in session today. Oklahoma City is still out. They're going to make their official announcement later this afternoon, but I imagine everyone's going to be back in session on Monday.
But Ben, there's some teachers who are not happy with this decision, right? I mean, we have some teachers who are really angry about questioning what was this all for?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of teachers that are frustrated. In fact, there was one of those impromptu rallies today. A teacher said, hey, we started this walkout, we'll end this walkout, to great applause. Now, I mean, I still feel like the end of the walkout will be today, although schools have said they're going to continue to send delegations, teams of teachers to the Capitol even when they reopen. But yeah, I mean, the OEA announcement yesterday wasn't well received by everybody. In fact, some Oklahoma City teachers are supposed to be meeting at the Capitol today and marching to their HR building to officially drop their OEA membership dues. So yeah, there is a lot of frustration, I think, for a lot of reasons. One is maybe a lack of communication with their members, a lack of communication with what they were working on. This was the first teacher walkout since 1990. The difference was in 1990 there was a specific bill. There's actually a specific emergency clause with that bill that all the teachers were focused on. Well, there wasn't really a unified bill.
I mean, and even that, Ben, the fact that they walked out after, that came after the legislature had actually taken action. We talked a little bit about this too, about Alicia Priest, the head of the OEA, and whether that put her in jeopardy, knowing that some of the teachers weren't happy with some of the leadership and how this had played out. And we talked about that. Her election was when?
I believe it was a couple weeks ago, at least that's information I have, coming into the walkout.
Right. So apparently she'll remain in control for some time or whatever. I just didn't know if there was any talk about, are there people who are angry at her leadership at this point?
Well, I mean, she claims that over 70% of their membership said that they felt like continuing the walkout would be a fruitless exercise. Now, there were a lot of people who claimed to be OEA members on social media that quickly responded and said, where did those results come from? I never saw a survey. So, right. Not really sure on the details of that. But yes, it has been contentious, and I know there are people even within OEA who've kind of been a little bit frustrated with the way that they've presented themselves and kind of handled communications. But there wasn't really that one unified bill that they were after. I mean, teachers were pushing for a repeal of the capital gains tax deduction. That bill was before the House. And they did push, they did rally behind a couple revenue-raising measures last week, the so-called Amazon tax and ball and dice gaming. But those were really the last, clear-cut wins, I guess you could say. And that was a week ago.
Right. Well, Ben's been out there every day since the day this started. Has a story this Sunday that'll sort of recap what's happened up to this point. Ben, thanks for all your coverage on this, and we'll see you back in the office hopefully on Monday.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Great.